Hey everyone, it's Friday again, and I'm Chris Thomas, and this is Land Flipping 101, where you can learn how to earn your financial freedom through land investing, even if you're a complete beginner with no experience. So I like to look at my pipeline just to let you know that I am a full-time land investor. So, hi Clara. I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about my pipeline right now. And then today I'm really just going to kind of talk about the journey of a beginning land flipper, or just a journey of a land flipper, like what it's like. And then, hi Niall and Kimberly. So as of today, my pipeline is that I have 18 properties currently listed for sale. I have 11 conversations going with prospective sellers, which are either in a deal review or in negotiations of some point. And then I had two set to close this month. I had one scheduled for today and one scheduled for yesterday. I talked about the one yesterday quite a bit on this Facebook Live 2 weeks ago. It's been a big problem property. It's in North Carolina and it has not closed yet. But I do expect that it will close. But in North Carolina, apparently, whenever you have a set date for your closing, which mine was July 22nd, there's a 2-week grace period, or for I guess for continued due diligence. So at this point, if my buyer backs out, I've got a $2,000 due diligence fee, which was supposed to cover their 30 days of due diligence, which ended on July 20th. And so I've already, if they don't do the deal, I get to keep that. And then there's also $1,000 of earnest money. So if they've passed the deadline to close and they don't close, I would get to keep that also. So at this point, there's some concern that the new buyer wants to they want to subdivide the 15 acres, and they're having some issues with, they're concerned about easements because the property's in the back of a really nice neighborhood, and so the HOA is sort of giving them a hard time about whether or not they can have access on the main roads of the neighborhood in order to bring in construction equipment. And I just hung up the phone with my attorney there, who said easement is not a problem because that's the main road that goes through, like, lots of people are using that road for access, and he doesn't think I have an easement problem. So he thinks it was just a delay tactic because this guy is an investor, he's a builder, and he needs a little bit more due diligence time. So I do think that one's still going to close, but there's a possibility it could close anytime in the next couple of weeks. So that's a little disappointing because I really wanted it to close yesterday. I'm going to make $35,000 on that deal. But right now, all signs are pointing to it still closing. But at the end of those 2 weeks of what they call a grace period in North Carolina, I'll be able to either sell it to a backup buyer, which I do have, or I could increase the price. I could charge more. So after this Facebook Live, I'll probably be calling that realtor to talk to them about what they want to do and what they're planning so that I can make some plans. Okay, then this one I was supposed to close today actually came up this week. So this is a property, it's about 13 acres. It's in an area that's, it's 13 acres, and I would say 10 of those acres are in a flood zone. So it's not, a great property. I have found that no property I buy is completely perfect without flaw or blemish, and this one is no exception. This was set to close at the end of May, and my seller backed out. So the seller didn't come to the closing table. She said, I've decided against selling, and I've decided that this property's been in my family for 100 years, and so I don't want to sell it. So I said, well, guess what? That's not a reason to not sell. That's a breach of contract under North Carolina law. So the attorneys have been going back and forth, and so I had my attorney send her a letter, and she got an attorney, and the attorney said, ma'am, you have to close. And so she agreed to close, and I agreed not to charge her damages for my extra attorney fees and things like that if she closed by today. Well, guess what? My attorney couldn't get it closed by today. So I'll be giving her a call back to say, I need a little bit more time for the paperwork. So, but anyway, I think that one's going to go ahead and close too, just as fast as we can. That one is a $30,000 profit. I'm buying it for $29,000 and I'm selling it. I have an end buyer at $59,000. So I just want to check in on the questions. Hey, welcome. I see there's right now like 21 people. So thank you all for tuning in. And let's see. Hi, Frank. Frank, I sent you a message. Hi, Sam, Michael, Joel, Joshua. Hey. Sam says, even if it's in a flood zone, after the flood is gone, the land will still be there. I love it. You know what, Sam? It's funny you say that because there are other homes built in that flood zone. So it is definitely buildable. I actually get a lot of deals with flood zones because, they are buildable. You just have to make allowance. You have to get an elevation certificate to make sure that your property is not built in the flood zone. You just have to build sort of above the highest flood point. Hey, Kale. Okay, y'all give me some other questions because I do have quite a few in the group too. I may go in there and answer some of those. Today I thought I would just kind of overview the journey of a land flipper because this is a group, this is a Facebook group for people interested in learning how to invest in land. So basically all I'm doing is I'm just meeting you here to say, hey, this is how I do it. Now, the way I do it is not the only way to do it. There are lots of ways to make money in real estate. And you can do it, as big or as small as you would like. There are lots of financing options too if you don't have your own money. So, you really kind of have to know your goal and what you're trying to achieve in order to figure out which type is best for you. So, to get started, and I assume that I'm just starting at the beginning, like assuming that you've never known anything about this. You've got to name your business. And I have a name for my business on the the purchasing side of the real estate, and then I have a different name on the selling side of real estate. So, but just to get started, you really only need a name for buying property, okay? So your land buying name is what I'm saying right now that you need. And you need a separate phone number from your personal number, and you need a separate email account. I recommend, because this is what I do, I just use the Google suite of services. They have Google Voice, which is voice over internet. They have email, and they have a great place for you to store all your documents. And then once you've gotten that going, then you want to go ahead and set up, like I mail my property owners a blind offer, and you can get the exact letter I send by going to landflipping101.com if you don't already have it. And then I go to a third-party mail house and I upload my data and my letter, and I have them mail it for me. So at the very beginning when you get started, go ahead and set up that account because it can take a few days, up to a week, to get that started. I use Rocket Print. And if you tell them, give them my name, they'll probably give you the same deal that I'm getting. Okay, so once you kind of get set up and you're getting your third-party account, mailing account sort of ready to go, then you want to start researching the market. And you want to look at areas where there's more sold than for sale. And the way that I do it is I basically look for several counties. I tend to go to just one state at first because pretty much any state will work. You want to be careful about the states where there's a law where they don't want you to solicit people through the mail. You can Google that and find out what states those are. I like to start in my own state. I'm in Tennessee. So I do a little research where I go to LandWatch and I put in 5 acres and up, maybe to 100, and then I put in the filters for the county. I look at every single county in the state. I use a VA to do that, and then I say put in the filters for recreational and undeveloped land, and then go ahead and look at how many are sold versus for sale. And if there are more sold than for sale, I consider that a hot market, especially if there's 10 transactions or more going on, because you want to make sure there's plenty of activity. Then I kind of check, is that close to a big city? Does that appear to be an area out of, like in the path of growth? And then, this is not like a cut and dry, but I also kind of say, well, has it grown a lot since the last census? And are there a lot of people wanting to move to that area? Those are the ways that I look for an area. and research the market. Then the next step is to create the mail. So you can use my letter template, and then I get my data from DataTree. Or if you're going to target 5 acres or more, I would recommend using the pricing software called Priced. And if you mention my name there, I think they'll give you my deal also. And then I get my data set ready and I send the mail out via Rocket Print. Then the next step is that people start to call me. So I get a lot of questions about, do I cold call, do I text, do I skip trace? And you know what? I'm really doing this in the lazy way. I send the mail and then I just wait for them to call me. Now, when they call me, I get busy because I do get a lot of calls. Some people are not happy with me because they don't like my offer, or it's insulting to them. They take it really personally. And then other people just sign it and send it back. Some people sign a counter offer and send it back. So I do have to deal with all of those, and I just try not to take them personally if they're mad at me, because it's not a personal thing. I'm just looking for a motivated situation where someone wants to get rid of their property. So then I spend some time talking with the prospective sellers, and when I find someone, you know, who's motivated, who's a non-wanter, then I'll sign a purchase agreement with them, and then I'll either close on it or I'll just move to the next step. Now, my personal strategy is that I don't close on it right away. I go ahead and market it for sale, and I try to find an end buyer so that I can do a simultaneous close. So after you have the signed contract, next you start creating the marketing pieces. Now, I do this myself. You can hire an agent, but it's pretty cheap to just do it yourself. There are flat fee listing services that can put it on the MLS for you, and then you just want to create a Facebook Marketplace post and then post that into relevant groups that would be interested in your property type. And then that's how you market the land for sale. And then the next step is you just start talking to people. Like you put it out there on the internet, people start asking about it. Now, I also put everything on my website that I know after I've done all the due diligence. I've checked all the stuff about the property to make sure it has road access, and that, you know, the taxes are paid, and that the person I'm talking to is the deeded owner, you know, so that all the legalities are right. I send it to title company because my deals are bigger. So I always use title because they just help me stay legal. It's just easier. And then, so anyway, I'm doing all that before I market the property. Then I market it, you know, put it out there for sale. And then I'm talking with prospective buyers, making sure they know all the information. But really, I'm just trying to get them to my website, because everything I know about the property is there. I link them to the zoning. I link them to the survey if there is one. I tell them, you know, what the land use is and what restrictions are there and things like that. And then when I find a buyer who's ready, I put it under contract to sell. Usually they provide a contract because most of the time my buyers have an agent, because again, my properties are a little bit more expensive. You know, they're not $5,000 and $10,000 properties. And then we go to closing. Then they go through their due diligence process to make sure that everything that I'm saying is actually true. And then the idea is that we close on it. So I line up the seller to close on the same day that I line up the buyer to close. And I personally use my own line of credit for transactional funding. That way no one knows what I'm doing on either deal, except for my attorney who's doing the closing. So he knows how much I'm making, but the seller doesn't know how much I'm selling it for, and the buyer doesn't know how much I bought it for. And everyone's happy. And I'm buying it cheap and I'm selling it cheap. So the person who buys it is very happy because they're getting a great deal. Like the one I mentioned that just got delayed. That's an investor. He's buying it because he wants to make money, and he will make a lot of money on that.